Good morning, and thank you all for attending today's Wellness Lunch and Learn. I'm Carol Battle from OSHR's Worksite Wellness, and our topic for this event falls directly in line with our mission to expand our Worksite Wellness program to include not only physical and nutritional wellness, but also mental, financial, social, and emotional wellness. What we're all learning in is that all areas of wellness are tied to what we eat, one way or another. As you explore this mind diet, you will learn that this eating protocol has powerful effects on healthy aging and slowing the progression of cognitive decline. Mental clarity is more important than ever, which is why we wanted to bring you this educational webinar today, because we value you and your health as state employees, and of course, to help us all age well. We're pleased to have our speaker today, Katie Godin from Lifestyle Medical Center. Katie's been a registered dietitian for over 15 years. Her focus is helping individuals improve their knowledge and relationship with food and to meet whatever their personal health goals are. Lifestyle Medical Center is an in-network nutrition counseling service. For those of you enrolled in the state health plan, virtual and in-person visits are covered at 100% for in-network providers. We have dietitians across the state, so to find one near you, log in to the state health plan portal, which is listed on this cover slide. As a reminder, everyone who's registered for this event will receive a recording of today's presentation, as well as the recipe and a link to our webpage where we house all our past cooking demos, as well as invitations to our upcoming webinars. Please note that we offer closed captioning for this event. If you're interested, just click on the web link in the Q&A to use this option. During the presentation, you can use the chat box for any questions, and we will be answering those as they come in, as well as with Katie during the cooking demo. I'd like to thank the members of NC Flex team who are also here to help with questions. Katie saved a few minutes at the end of the event to conquer any questions that we aren't able to get to during the demo. So without further ado, let's welcome Katie and Lunch and Learn.
Thank you, Carol. Hey, everybody. I hope that your summer is, well, I guess it'll be almost officially summer, but hopefully it's getting off to a good start. Today's presentation topic is something that I've done some research on when I first started at Lifestyle, and I just thought it was really fascinating. There's actually a book that the researchers wrote, and very interesting when you kind of think about how food directly impacts the health of our brain and making sure that we are having this healthy aging process when it comes to our cognitive health. So today we will be talking about the MIND diet, which specifically stands for the Mediterranean/DASH intervention for neurodegenerative delay. And I'll get a little bit more into that here in a second. As I mention every time, but for some of you guys who may be joining in for the first time today, as Carol mentioned, I've been a dietitian for over 15 years now. I've been working with Lifestyle for I guess about 6. And so when you come to Lifestyle, it's certainly not a one-size-fits-all approach. It's not cookie cutter. It's very individualized. We offer a lot of different services and areas that we kind of focus in on with a patient. So some people may want to seek out weight management, but some people may just want to come to us in hopes to just learn more about how to eat healthy and how to improve their overall lifestyle habits. And one of the most wonderful parts that perks, I guess, that's come out of the pandemic is our virtual ability at this point to see people, and which your insurance does cover. So anyway, just wanted to mention that. So, okay, let's kind of get into the detail here. So the MIND diet is something that was created, which I'll get into the research here in just a second. But due to dementia being the 6th leading cause of death in the US, researchers kind of teamed it together to see if there was a specific diet that could help with the progression of cognitive decline. So as I mentioned, and as is mentioned in the name, the MIND diet is a hybrid of the Mediterranean and the DASH diets, which are very popular. I've given some presentations on the Mediterranean in the past. I don't believe I've done anything specifically on DASH, which stands for Dietary Approaches to Stop Hypertension. There are some differences, a lot of similarities. We'll go over that further down the road here. But both have been found to reduce the risk of cardiovascular conditions like hypertension, heart attack, and stroke. But these researchers wanted to team together to see if there were certain foods, which they've termed the MIND diet, that could help slow the progression of cognitive decline and reduce an individual's risk of developing Alzheimer's from occurring. So also to note, they were not doing research to show that the MIND diet would help with reversing Alzheimer's in patients who already have the disease. So as we preach at Lifestyle, and I think a lot of practitioners are trying to really encourage, is preventative health care. And so this is more of a what to do now to help with, that aging process as we get into our later years of life. So just a little bit of information on the correlation of chronic disease and dementia. So first off, diabetes. So very interestingly, the Alzheimer's brain has a diabetes-like condition. So there's a result of high insulin levels in the brain, showing that individuals with type 2 diabetes are as much as 50 to 65% more at risk of developing Alzheimer's dementia. So that's a pretty alarming statistic. Also termed Alzheimer's dementia has been termed type 3 diabetes. So, this is not meant to scare, shock. It's only meant to kind of encourage the idea that, these are things that are not permanent diagnoses for people. Diabetes can be reversed. I've seen it. You have the power to do that. I think it's just having that help and guidance. Kind of moving on here to high blood pressure, high cholesterol. You are more likely to have a stroke, which we know impairs cognitive function. Increased homocysteine, which is an amino acid that's found in the blood, mostly found in meat products, and high levels can damage the lining of the arteries and make blood clots a little bit easier. And then elevated CRP, which is your C-reactive protein. Maybe you guys have gone into the doctor's office and had your CRP test done, but this is showing the CRP levels are markers of inflammation in the body. And increased levels in the blood can indicate vascular issues, which are directly associated with stroke, which can, of course, lead to impaired brain function. And then last, obesity. An individual is 3 times more likely to develop Alzheimer's dementia and 5 times more likely to develop vascular dementia compared to someone within a normal/overweight BMI category. Hesitant to really harp on that one specifically, as many of you know, if you've heard me speak at all, I'm pretty weight neutral. I'm also not someone that feels weight alone is going to be is going to indicate overall health. It's a lot of things. So don't be alarmed if you have 1 or 3 of these issues that are mentioned. I think the main thing is to take from this is that we do need to be informed of how chronic disease can affect lots of different parts of our body, specifically our brain. And I think it's important to kind of focus in on that. So Alrighty, so okay, I've kind of gone over a little bit of the research. I know maybe some of this is a little dry compared to some of my other fun presentations with lots of pictures and stuff, but again, I think it's sometimes really good to kind of dive into some of the current research that's going on out there. Like I mentioned, these researchers from Rush University and Harvard University wanted to isolate out 15 specific brain healthy foods, also putting limitations on 5 unhealthy foods, which I will name here in just a minute, to see if they could see different results related to the protection of cognitive decline / dementia in older adults. They did look at previous studies from the Mediterranean and DASH, as that's kind of, the basis of the research was to kind of combine these two diets and see if they could form something that's a bit more specific to brain health. The research was conducted on older adults, average age of 64. And so they followed these, and guys, just to throw out there my references, I have linked a lot of websites where if you want to go in and read about the main Mind Diet study, if you're interested in stuff like that. Talking about the scoring components, which I'll touch on here. There's a bit more detail that, of course, I can't spend in a 30-minute mini presentation. So it's maybe kind of interesting to go back and kind of look at that specifically. But anywho, they focused on an overall scoring method over about a 10-year period. They followed these individuals and they would score them weekly. So there was a score ranging 0 to 15 based on the 15 dietary components of the diet. And as you can maybe imagine, those that were a bit more compliant with the recommendations that they had put in place were going to score higher. And so again, they would do this on a weekly basis over many years. And so what they found was that those participants that scored in the higher range of these Mind Diet scores were likely to keep the brain 7.5 years younger and reduce the risk of Alzheimer's by 53%. I found that incredible, to be quite honest. They even found that those participants who had moderate mind scores, so maybe followed it about half of the time, showed a 35% lower rate compared with those that really weren't as compliant at all with the diet. So also to note that they did kind of concur that the Mind Diet itself did show better effects of on cognition than just the Mediterranean or just the DASH alone. So interesting stuff. Again, please feel free to kind of look into that further if you like looking at studies. So, okay, we've kind of gone over the fact that the Mind Diet is the combo of the DASH and the Mediterranean. I just wanted to put a brief slide in here to kind of go through what the differences are in case you have never heard of the DASH or heard of the Mediterranean, or maybe you've heard of just one, not the other. So the DASH diet overall is usually implemented for someone that has high blood pressure. Maybe they have just recently been diagnosed with heart disease or at risk of stroke. These are things that they try to encourage for reducing blood pressure. They focus in on certain nutrients like potassium and magnesium and calcium, which are other major electrolytes that can help kind of neutralize out sodium. Sodium again, I feel like this overall recommendation is pretty liberal, considering that if you come see me, I'm probably going to tell you to eat less than 2,300 milligrams or less per day. But that's what the DASH diet specifically has set for sodium. The limits are mainly on saturated fats, sodium, sweets, and alcohol. So the origin of this diet also was just based on health trials and studies. So it was just kind of created, studied, showed to help with blood pressure, then the diet was formed. The Mediterranean is a little different in its origin. It's based on the history of the Mediterranean cuisine, where they found that those that were living over in the Mediterranean were were showing decreased risks of heart disease. They just overall were had healthier hearts in general, okay? More emphasis on fiber-rich foods. There really is no specification of sodium intake, and they really aren't so specific about not having things like saturated fat, sodium, sweets, alcohol. It's more about just kind of having moderation of these things versus just basically limiting it altogether. So we merge into the MIND diet. That's kind of what existed. And then the researchers, like I mentioned, wanted to kind of study these 15 dietary components. So when it comes to the things that overall this diet is encouraging, the things that stand out in my mind are green leafy vegetables on a daily basis. Okay, so that's why I'm going to show you guys this yummy kale salad. If you've not had kale before, I highly recommend you try it. I'm going to show you some really good tips and tricks to use kale. There's very specific things that can really help create a more tender green and not be so bitter. So I will talk about that. But yes, they encourage green leafies every single day, and at least once per day, another serving of vegetables. All right. The nuts are encouraged every day. So nut could be nut butter, it could be seeds, or a third a cup of nuts every single day. Berries are the fruit that they focus on. Now, let me point out, they're not saying that you shouldn't eat other vegetables. We know if you do on a consistent basis, it shows to help with the prevention of the cognitive decline. So again, they focus on berries twice a week. Does that mean you can't have other fruit, or they're not recommending other fruit? No, it isn't recommending that. It's just really showing that having berries on a regular or regular basis is something that they think highly of. Okay, so if we look at the others, beans is a really big focus. All right, so every other day, a half a cup of cooked beans. Easy. I know everyone, I love to encourage beans when someone comes and sees me, because I think that people don't realize how easy it is to incorporate them and how you don't have to have them in this kind of boring way. And it doesn't have to just be soups or Mexican food. You know, there's ways of incorporating beans that are really fun and yummy. So they do encourage those every other day. They encourage whole grains a few times per day. And I will point out, you look at the serving size, that could be a slice of whole grain bread. So essentially a sandwich is getting you 2 out of the 3, and then a half a cup of brown rice for dinner. Done. So it isn't tough to get whole grains. Some people might ask, well, what if I'm on keto, or what if I'm on this? Well, they weren't studying keto. They're studying things that incorporate whole food carbs, which is something that I'm a big fan of. I am not someone that thinks that we can't have carbs in our diet. I think most of the research shows it's the types of carbs we're consuming. So I don't want anyone to feel ever fearful of having oatmeal or having rice or having pasta. I think it's about all the other things that we're doing and the types that we're including. So just wanted to throw that little tidbit in there. When it comes to meat and fish, interestingly here, so only 3 ounces once a week. I would have thought more. I would have thought at least maybe 4 ounces a couple of times a week, but no, just 3 ounces once a week. So I feel like that's relatively easy. Let's say you don't like fish. So if you don't like fish, there's other ways to get DHA. That's what they're really trying to emphasize here, is the DHA, the healthy fat that's coming from those omega-3 fats that can also be found in things like walnuts and healthy oils and seeds. And so please don't worry, just for general health. I know you probably hear you should eat salmon a couple of times a week. It's really okay if you don't like it. There are vegans, there are people out there that do not eat, and of course vegetarians as well, that do not eat meat and fish and can lead a very healthy, wonderfully healthy life. So, okay, moving on there, poultry. So some type of white meat, 3 ounce portion at least twice per week, and then just a little bit of olive oil a couple times a day. So again, I don't think that it's the biggest deal in the world if you have more than what they're recommending, right? They're saying at least this is what we want to see. And the specific nutrients that they were looking at within the foods that they have put here within these 15 dietary components are a high amount of antioxidants, which I know we have talked about before with good old anti-inflammatory and how powerful those antioxidants are, coming from things like vitamin E, flavonoids, carotenoids found in those leafy greens and colorful veggies that you're eating. These types of antioxidants and nutrients from food are extremely important to that aging brain. The other thing that they were looking at within the foods and the research was DHA specifically, like I just mentioned, specifically saying that Alzheimer's patients are noted to have lower levels of DHA in the brain. There are supplements out there too that you can take, which is something that I usually work with patients on if they're really unable to eat. So say they're allergic to nuts, they don't like fish. There are other ways to get that DHA into your body. And then B vitamins. So specifically these B vitamins, remember when I talked about homocysteine, which is that amino acid that once built up in the blood can damage the lining of the arteries and make blood clotting a lot easier. So B vitamins specifically help to metabolize homocysteine. So breaking it down, reducing the levels in your body. And so also mentioned supplementation. Certain older adults that have higher homocysteine levels may require supplementation to help with that. Okay, so we talked about what you should eat. What were they looking at that you shouldn't eat? Some of these might shock you, maybe make you happy, and then others might make you feel like this is really tough. But believe it or not, red meat's recommendation is no more than 3 servings per week. I was actually shocked on that, to be quite honest. I would assume once a week. But I think, again, you know, kind of thinking about when like how I counsel people, I really feel like it's all about all of the things that we're adding to the picture. So if we're having red meat a couple of times a week, but we're also incorporating beans every other day and all these lovely fruits and vegetables in our diet, healthy fats, is it really the biggest deal to have that meat? Well, I guess not, because based on this research, it's showing that that's okay. People would maybe fight me on that, and that's okay too. But anyway, butter and margarine, less than 1 tablespoon daily. So the whole butter and margarine debate I know exists. Everyone always wants to know which one is better. So it depends. Luckily, trans fat was banned in the US years back. And so you won't find that in margarine anymore, which was the biggest difference, you know, however many years, 5 to 10 years ago. And butter would have been the better alternative. Granted, it's loaded with saturated fat. So that's something that you have to take into account as well. Some people feel that the type of butter is really important. So if you're eating grass-fed butter, you're also gaining some of those good nutrients from the feed that the cows were on versus grain-fed, where you can have a bit more processed foods that are given to the actual cows, whereas grass-fed is a bit more whole, has more omega-3 fats, has more nutrients in general. Still, it has saturated fat, and margarine is going to have a little less, a bit more unsaturated fat oils, but 1 tablespoon daily is their recommendation in general for both of those. Cheese, less than 1 serving a week. That would be tough. I really feel like that would be a hard one for a lot of people, unless you are vegan and you're used to not eating cheese on a daily basis. That would be hard, but the pastries and sweets, let's talk about that. 4 servings per week. I was shocked as well, but I think it is, again, you know, the types is something that I always encourage people to be mindful of. You know, having the processed kind of added sugars coming from things that might have zero other nutritive value to them versus having something like a rich dark chocolate. So I think it's good to also remember that it is, again, what I said just a minute ago, about a lot of variety in the way that we eat, not being so tightly rigid that we can't ever have anything that we desire. So it's definitely a balance of that. And then their fried and fast food recommendation was less than 1 serving per week. So I've kind of created a little mind diet menu, if you will. So we've got here a breakfast for, or excuse me, a veggie frittata for breakfast. One of the most simplest things that you can do. And of course, if you come to Lifestyle, you come see me. I've got bukus of recipes, happy to share all types of things. But a veggie frittata is very, very easy and something you can make ahead of time and eat over a couple of days. It's a great way to get vegetables in the morning. So I think that's kind of the emphasis there. A snack of walnut and blueberries. So you're getting a serving of your nuts. You're getting some of those antioxidant rich blueberries, added fiber. And then for lunch, an avocado-based tuna salad. So you're getting a lovely, healthy fat focus there within the tuna, which you're also kind of meeting that recommendation for a few ounces of fish once a week. On your whole grain bread, gets you 2 out of your 3 whole grain recommendations for the day. And of course, your leafy green salad to kind of meet your recommendation for leafy greens. Snack of hummus and veggies. One of my favorite things to do is chop up a bunch of vegetables, keep them in the refrigerator, and have whatever dip you want to add to it. So you don't have to do hummus with veggies. You could do something like a tzatziki or a guacamole. Those are some of my favorites to use with those vegetables. And then for dinner, some type of, chicken or fish could go here too, with your broccoli, and then your third serving of whole grain with your quinoa. And then if you desire a 6-ounce glass of red wine, that is also something that they felt kind of like the Mediterranean that you could have in moderation with the Mind Diet. Okie dokie. So let's see, these are some of my references that I mentioned where it kind of links you directly to the Mind Diet research and some other information that I gathered, some of the content for my presentation. So if you want to look further, you can look there. And now we're finally there to the cooking demo. We've got a kale and kimchi salad, which I'm really excited to feature for you guys today. So I want to talk about this recipe really quickly before we get into it. It's very simple. Okay, the most time-consuming part of it was to roast the sweet potato, which I've done ahead of time. So I'm going to show you that and how I did it, which is very easy. Let's talk a little bit about kale. So I've got people that are nervous of kale, and that's okay. If you are strictly, I'm not doing it, I've had supposed to be the most wonderful kale, and I still don't like it. Whereas everyone loves it, I still hate it. You can use a different grain. It's okay. I would say it's rival of spinach, but they're both very healthy in different ways. So I think one isn't better than the other. They just kind of highlight different nutrients. So I hear that a lot. Well, I like spinach, but I don't like kale. Is that okay? Well, yeah, that's okay. For this particular recipe, I don't know if I would do spinach, and you'll see why when I get into the massaging of the kale with the avocado. I would maybe use like a green leaf or something like that has that kind of curly texture to it and a little bit, yeah, just an easier thing to kind of mix in the avocado. The other ingredients that this particular dish features is, we talked about the sweet potato, the avocado, which I'll show you here in a second. It's going to use a little bit of lemon juice with that avocado. There's no dressing. So the dressing itself is the mixture of the avocado with the lemon juice and a little bit of salt. It is so good. Could you use dressing? Yes, you could, but I really think that this has so much creamy texture and flavor. Maybe just a drizzle of olive oil on there. Hey, your 2 teaspoons of olive oil, if you've not used it yet. Drizzle it over the salad to get a little extra in would be a good thing to do. All right, let's talk about kimchi. So I'm going to show you what I have here. You can get all different types of kimchi. All right, so I just picked this up from local grocery store. I believe it was Harris Teeter. You can get it at most grocery stores, health food stores. It is not cheap. So, that's something that I know people would maybe look at and say, oh, I don't want to pay, $6 for a bag of kimchi. It might last you, depending on how often, you're eating it, a week or so. But I also look at foods like this as better than supplements. I would much rather you get something like kimchi, which it's known for its fermented vegetables, which are strong, live, active probiotics that have been formed during that fermentation. That is a much better source of probiotics than a probiotic supplement. All right, so that is that. If you don't like kimchi, if you've never had it, I think you should try it. It has an Asian flair to it. It is different than sauerkraut. So I don't know if many people kind of correlate kimchi with sauerkraut because it's cabbage based. Kimchi has other vegetables. It has really an assortment. So you really don't have to, like, I think this one has some red pepper, some greens, a little bit of garlic, whereas sauerkraut is just cabbage. And this has a bit more of an Asian flair. So really good in soups and little noodle dishes if you like Asian dishes, cuisine, and then of course on salads. So, and I can take any questions about any of this as I get into it. But my other favorite thing that's featured in here is chickpeas. So of course, beans every other day with the Mind Diet. I am a big fan of putting carbs on your salad that are not croutons necessarily, which I'll show you really quickly. If you like a crunch on your salad, these little crispy chickpeas are great. This particular recipe discusses using the crispy chickpeas instead of the canned. I like the canned better for the quantity that it calls for. I think that this would be great for just a little sprinkle on top of your salad once you're, eating it. All right, so chickpeas and then pumpkin seeds, which are loaded with magnesium. And so a serving of pumpkin seeds has 40% of your magnesium for the entire day. So why do we need more magnesium? 60% of us are deficient in it. And a lot of it is linked with anxiety. I talk to people about if you struggle with anxiety, just as a little side note here before I get into my recipe, taking magnesium, specifically the form glycinate, can help due to lower levels of magnesium kind of being associated with anxiety. So really interesting there, and it helps with you falling asleep. So take it at night. So a lot of people, I have a few patients that do that. So, and it helps them. So, all right. Questions before I get started? I'm going to pull out my kale here.
Yes, we do have a few.
Okay.
One person said that they see Swiss chard as a green leafy vegetable.
Yeah, okay.
How do you cook that? Or
you
do
can
you
saute it. Yeah,
Okay.
you can saute it. You can add it into soups. So that would be kind of in water, cooking it that way. Saute Swiss chard. Great to use as you would another leafy green, like a cooked green like that. So yeah, that would be it. That would definitely be fine.
Okay, great. And does fried include stir fry with like olive or avocado oil?
Nope. Just so fried, what they're probably referring to would be so a stir fry is a lot different than like a deep fry. Okay, so a deep fry is usually using some type of processed vegetable oil that the food, of course, is being submerged and cooked in for a long period of time. So it's kind of saturated with that typically unhealthy oil, where we have air fryers that use healthy oils and all kinds of things out there these days. If you're like there's certain foods that you just really like to have on a regular basis, that could be a healthy alternative. But yeah, they're really referring to more of your processed, unhealthy oils that are more of that saturated fat focus. So within the product, yeah.
Okay. And one person wants to know, what's the issue with cheese? Why was that recommended so few
Probably
times.
probably for the saturated fat content is what I would imagine. And so usually processed dairy has been linked to just heart disease in general, and probably, and as we talked about, vascular issues and heart health correlated with cognitive health. And so that would be probably the biggest focus there. So does that mean all cheese is created equal? No. I mean, there are some cheeses, harder cheeses. I love sharper, hard cheese that provides a lot of flavor, because we tend to need less to order to get the fill that we need. Again, you know, this isn't about being perfect. Maybe there's some weeks where you have a few servings of cheese and some weeks where you say, I don't really need cheese that much. Maybe it gets you to think of how we can eat in a way that doesn't rely on cheese like we tend to rely on cheese in most American cuisine. I think it's interesting to kind of challenge yourself in that way. So, all right, guys, let me get started and then we can take more questions as I get into the salad, because it really is a quick one to prepare, which is great. The first thing that you would do at home, though, if you're making this, is you would preheat the oven to 375 and you would chop up your sweet potato, or you can get your sweet potato pre-cubed depending on what you desire for convenience. It takes about 1 minute to chop up a sweet potato. I just used a small one. I chopped it up into little cubes. So a small produced about a cup. This is a cup measuring here. I drizzled with a teeny bit of olive oil. I put it on, or actually I think I used avocado oil specifically for this. I put it in the oven for about 15 minutes. I turned it, or just kind of, you know, move it around. And then I put it for about 10 minutes more. That's my oven. We all know our ovens, and some ovens are just stronger or different. And so sometimes the recipe might say one thing. This is what worked well for me. And when it comes to roasting vegetables, I always check on them. Even if it says roast for 45, I'll check on it always midway, turn, look at it, see how it's cooking. Depends on the your cube size. I mean, maybe there were bigger chunks in this particular recipe because it's saying 35 minutes, whereas I was able to get away with 25 minutes, but maybe I chopped my cubes a bit smaller. Okay, so I've got a cup of sweet potato cubes kind of already done. All right. So that's what you would do first. You would prepare your sweet potato, pop it into the oven, and then while it's cooking, you can prepare the rest of your salad. All right. It calls for 5 cups of kale. So this particular recipe is for 2 servings, but I feel like you could easily get away with 3 or 4, depending on how much of it you would like on your plate. If it's an entree salad, that's great. If it's kind of a small side salad for your meal, then obviously it'll go a little bit further. I'm going to show you how to cut the kale. I already have 4 cups here already pre-cut. Again, convenience factor, you can buy it pre-cut, pre-washed. Love it. Okay, I think that's great. I went this route. Obviously, if you know, we talked about grocery shopping a while back. If you want convenience, expect to pay a little bit more. But sometimes that's worth it for people. So anywho, this is 4 cups. I'm going to cut up another cup and show you how to do it. All right. So I also want you to take a peek at the color of this kale. Okay, it's light green. It's pretty dry if you feel it. I know you can't feel it, but it's light green. All right. So big stalk, right? We don't want that. So we're just going to cut it off the stalk, just kind of chop it off the stalk there and discard the stalk. All right. I'm going to save that in case I need it. I've got my cup measuring here. What I like to do is just kind of put it in a ball, and then it cuts it into just kind of nice. For me, with kale, I want it small. I like it small. I don't like big pieces of it. And maybe most people like that about their salads. All right, just for good measure, it's about a packed cup. All right, I'm going to dump it in. All right, and we'll clean this off for a second. The next thing that you're going to do is you're going to half your avocado. And I think we've talked about this before. With an avocado, you kind of want it to be soft, but not too soft. You want to be able to make like a slight indent to it, but it not just completely sink. And you don't want it to be super hard. That means it's not ready yet. All right, to cut an avocado, you're just going to slice it right down the middle. Okay, all the way through. You're going to twist it. And we've got a pretty avocado there. Always use the side that does not have the pit. The pit will help preserve it from turning brown. You can also sprinkle, which I have right here, just a teeny bit of lemon juice over it to help it from oxidizing, which hits the air, it turns brown. Wrap it in like a plastic wrap or some kind of tight seal, and it will last you a lot longer, maybe, you know, a day or so. I would eat it within the day or two. Okay, so we're going to cube this avocado. So how I cube, I'm going to make these kind of tiny slits. Be very careful. And then we're going to do it the other way. All right. And then move my lemon over. Make sure you guys can kind of see what I'm doing. All right. And then I'm just going to squeeze it in. All right. So we got all of those little chunks coming out, and you can scoop it out. Now, look, your hands are going to get dirty with this, okay? Some people might like that, and some people might think it's gross, but I kind of think it's fun. So what we're going to do is we're going to start, actually, you guys, I'm sorry. I'm going to squeeze a whole lemon in here. 2 tablespoons is about 1 lemon. So I've got 2 halves. I'm squeezing that lemon in there. So we've got lemon, 1 lemon, and we've got a half of an avocado. And then we're going to massage it. All right. Now it says to massage it for 2 minutes. So I'm going to do that, but I'm also going to show you kind of midway here. When you massage this kale, it releases a compound, and I'm sorry that I can't remember the scientific name here, that creates it to turn green, dark green, releasing that bitter flavor. It becomes less bitter and soft. And so that's why it wants you to do this. This is a must with kale. If you guys have gotten kale and tried to just cut it up like lettuce and eat it, and that's been your experience, then you need to try it this way. Kale is bitter, so it helps to pair it with things that have a little sweetness to it. That sweet potato is going to be a really lovely addition. You can also do strawberries, some type of berry in here, to kind of add a little bit of that sweetness. Does anyone have a question while I'm doing this?
We did have a question about, could you mention again what's the best magnesium for anxiety and sleep?
Magnesium glycinate.
Okay.
Yep.
So any kind of magnesium with glycinate.
Yeah, just magnesium glycinate. Yep.
All right. And would you recommend bok choy as a leafy green vegetable?
Yeah, oh, definitely. I love bok choy. That for me would be stir fries and Asian dishes like that. That's how I love bok choy. Soups. Yes, definitely.
And what about microwaving your greens? Does that destroy their nutritional value?
Microwave has a very powerful heating, unless you can reduce the power. I would just kind of assume to bust out that that pan, it takes just a couple minutes, few minutes for things to start to wilt that are greens. I really would go that route. Yeah.
Okay, good.
All right, I'm going to go wash my hands off, guys, and then I will be right back. So that is the only thing. But I'm telling you, talk about stress relief. This is great. I mean, you know, if you just need to like get some greens and just massage in some avocado, it is great. It is good. Okay, I'll be right back.
It looks good.
Okay. Add in those. So if you guys can kind of see this, it looks totally different than, maybe it's hard to tell on the screen as much, but this is definitely, the feel of it is much different and it's lighter, whereas this is a bit darker and much softer. So that's the first thing that you're going to do. Again, your sweet potato is still cooking at this point. The next thing that you're going to do is you're going to add in the kimchi, which is half of a cup. All right, so I'm going to measure that out and I'll show it to you. Open it up. So this has some carrot and some peppers and some greens, a lot of cabbage, but there's other things in there too. So this is a 1/4 cup. I'm going to dollop that in a little bit more. All right. Again, you can leave out the kimchi. It is not essential for this dish. It's something fun to try. And if you've been, told that you have any gut health issues, probiotic supplements aren't working, you've never tried any fermented vegetables on a regular basis, this would be something interesting to try to add into your diet. Okay, so we've got a 1/2 cup of kimchi. Then we're going to add in the 1 cup of chickpeas. So guys, chickpeas, you can do canned. That is okay. I am perfectly okay with canned beans. In my opinion, they're the easiest thing. They're cheap. Keep them in the cupboard. This particular bean goes well with this salad. You could do other beans. You could add lentils. You could add really any whole bean like that. White beans. You could add maybe black beans, I guess, but I just feel like chickpeas goes really well with this. Again, they had mentioned using these little crispy chickpeas, but I just think that they are a nice topper for me personally. That is just my personal opinion. These could be like what you would prefer. So both are good options.
Katie,
So
are those hard to find, the crunchy ones?
Oh, no. These are not hard to find. So you do need to go into kind of your like the international aisle where you might find Asian cuisine and sauces and things like that. You'll see them there. Okay. Yep. All right. So we're gonna dump those chickpeas in. I've also, of course, because I made them ahead of time, I've got my cup of sweet potato chunks. So I'm going to add that in. And this could be a very healthy entree salad loaded with all the things. This is the vegan recipe, but you can make it your own. If you want to add chicken, I think salmon would go lovely with this. If you like fish, I think that would be a great accompaniment. You could just have this alone and that would be okay too. All right, now my favorite, we're going to add in 3 tablespoons of these pumpkin seeds. Pumpkin seeds are so delicious to me. If you don't like them and would prefer a different nut, that would be okay too. Maybe you like a little sunflower seed. Maybe you want a little slivered almond. Maybe you don't have nuts at all because you're allergic, right? So, I mean, you can make this your own. But I'm going to do 3 tablespoons in here. This could be also something that you don't just mix in. You just kind of top your salad with it. All right, I'm going to get a little spoon and kind of mix this all together. Okay, we're just going to kind of mix it up. I love the color. One of my favorite things about salads is to see for me, I would want a little something else in there, and I don't know what. Maybe some little craisins, little dried cranberries, just a few to give it that pop of red. I think salads are absolutely a work of art, and I love doing them. So, and a lot of times when people think salad, they think, just vegetables and whatever dressing, whereas this is so much more with those beans and that sweet potato to really emphasize plant-based protein and complex carb. It's going to keep you full so much longer, and especially if you want to add little extra protein to this if you are vegetarian or, you know, and want to add in maybe like a Greek yogurt to get in some more protein that way. Anywho, this is just, yeah, beautiful. So, okay, let me pour it in my bowl and then I'll show you the product. Lost a little of my pumpkin seeds. Try to scrape them out. All right, okay, there we go. Beautiful.
Beautiful.
Yes.
Lots of good color.
Lots of wonderful color, and it's absolutely delicious. If you want to add another dressing, you know, we talked about a little bit of the olive oil, but if you feel like it needs a bit more pizzazz and flavor for you, add a dressing, right? And it's fine. You know, you could just drizzle dressing of choice on there. But yes, it has such a nice creamy texture, and it's just bursting with very interesting flavors, especially from the kimchi. It's fun to try new things. I encourage you with these recipes to reach outside your comfort zone, try things you've never had before. Don't knock it, right? Until you've had it. And but again, understand that there's also flexibility with a lot of the recipes that I make. I try to throw out swaps and things like that, omit things if needed. So yeah, I know we're a little early. It was a quick recipe, but were there any more questions?
Yes, relative to the Mind Diet, what is the thought about coffee? Is
So
it
coffee
okay
was
to drink
not,
coffee?
yeah, I mean, coffee was really not mentioned. And so I don't think that wasn't on the do not list, and that wasn't on the must have list. I think coffee is so my stance on it, as I don't really know if the Mind Diet had a specific stance on it, but my stance is that we really need to look at the big picture with coffee. So are we having 1 cup of coffee and we're adding just, you know, a modest amount of whatever you put in there? What is it? What are we putting in there? Side note on coffee. And if I have transitioned someone off completely of Starbucks just by mixing in a Fairlife protein shake into her coffee in the morning to make mochas. So I'm just saying there are ways to kind of change up the way the coffee is so that it's, you know, because that's part of it, that the fact that a lot of us pull through Starbucks or get coffee in that way that's loaded with added sugars and it just is unnecessary. It takes the place of water sometimes for people. So that's another thing that I focus in on, which next month we talk about hydration, which I'm really excited to talk about. It'll be a good time of year with that July heat to focus in on hydration. But it's important that you're drinking enough water to go along with the caffeine, because caffeine dehydrates us. And if we're not getting enough water, then it's going to affect a lot of different things, which we'll talk about next time. But so yeah, so I look at that. I look at, you know, sugar. I look at, you know, what are we putting in our coffee? I look at how much coffee we're drinking. Are we sipping on coffee until noon and then we start our water, or are we having a cup of water between coffee? Are we having 3 and 4 cups a day, or are we just having 1 or 2? So I'm flexible with coffee to a certain extent, but I think that as long as we're kind of thinking about that bigger picture too, I think that's important to take note of. But yeah, I didn't know, or I didn't see any specific stance on coffee with the Mind Diet.
All right, great. Let's see. Is there something else that you could use besides avocado to soften the kale?
Olive oil. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Olive oil and
Great.
lemon juice. That's what I would normally do. If you don't like avocado.
All right. And would taking fish oil capsules have the same benefit as eating fish?
Yes, I mean, so fish oil specifically is great for taking a fish oil supplement, is really most researched on triglyceride and reduction of high triglycerides. So that's kind of the basis behind that. But yes, I do think that that is a great backup plan for getting in extra DHA. It can certainly help with inflammation, like we've talked about before, with a lot of chronic inflammation. I will recommend a fish oil supplement if doctors are on board with that, because remember, and I will put that out there, fish oil is a blood thinner. And so if you are contraindicated for blood thinners, then that is something that so you always, bottom line, guys, anything that I ever recommend, I always tell people to make sure they've confirmed it with their doctor, because that is the most important thing. But yes, in general, taking a fish oil is certainly a nice backup. I always encourage food first, but I do think that just because I do think that our body responds to kind of a natural food, utilizes it so differently, so much more thoroughly. So I do think that's important to consider. But so I would want to understand why someone can't eat anything with DHA in it. And I think there's probably a lot of people out there that have very valid reasons. And so, yeah, so long answer, but yes, you can.
Okay, and along with our July session being on hydration, our August 15th session is on vitamins and mineral supplements.
Yes.
So all of you all that have questions about the magnesium and any other of these supplements, fish oil included, we will be doing a whole session on that in August. So do not miss that one.
Let me go ahead and put out there for people that are going to be attending that one. I am not going to talk about every supplement and that's out there. I'm going to talk about why a lot of why we shouldn't be taking a lot of these supplements, but I am going to highlight my top picks and why. And so it'll be really, I think, really interesting to understand that. And then also how to weed through and navigate the supplement aisles, because there's way too many out there that we don't need. And so, yeah, so it'll be a very interesting one for sure.
Okay. And can you tell a little bit more about kimchi? Where do you find it in the grocery store? Is it a type of fish? Does it have fish oil with it?
Okay.
Or just, what is kimchi?
So kimchi are pickled vegetables, essentially, mostly cabbage. So no, there's no fish. There is non-vegan kimchi. The one that I purchased is vegan kimchi. So, but typically it's just veggies with some spices and maybe a little garlic, maybe a bit of heat. Sometimes you can give different heats. It's an Asian accompaniment to Asian cuisine. So it has an Asian flair to it for sure. You can find it in the refrigerated section of a grocery store, kind of where you would get your probiotic drinks, where you would find, maybe some of your other vegan products that are refrigerated. Specifically in the hair studio that I was at, it also had the hummus, but sometimes that's depending on which grocery store you go to, in a separate area, but definitely in the vegetable kind of area. So the vegetables section, in the refrigerated section of the kind of in the veggie area, fruit and veggie area. So.
Okay.
Kind of like where kombucha. So that's another, sorry. The kombucha is right by it as well as a fermented drink. So with the fermented products.
All right. This was great information. Everybody is very, very excited.
Good.
Let's see. Okay, and most of the rest of these questions are the person really needs to talk to a dietitian about their personal needs or their doctor.
And I will throw that out here, that last minute, within this last minute, that it can get really complicated to try to personalize a presentation where, if I start doing it for one or two, then I think it would trickle to many more. And so I do encourage with your free benefits and the virtual side of things, to just schedule an appointment, even if it's just for a few, to kind of learn more. I think once you get started, you'll realize that you may enjoy just that time for yourself. I feel like it's definitely self-care to do these things, to kind of learn and help get those, make those changes. But yes, definitely reach out if there were any questions that, you want to discuss further. So.
And how long will this salad last? Can you put it in the refrigerator for leftovers, or what would you recommend?
Probably next day. I would eat it through the, maybe like trickling into the next day. The problem is with the mashing of the avocado in with the greens. Otherwise, it would last a little bit longer. So for that, if you want to kind of only mash what you're going to use, or just slice the avocado and put it on top, if you want to do it that way, that's fine. And massage it with the olive oil and the lemon juice still to keep it nice and soft and kind of decrease that bitterness. But yeah, it's gonna get soggy and all the things that you're mixing into it. So if you're trying to make this more for meal prep for the week, I would really just add the things as you need them, which is a bit more work. But a lot of the things like the crunchy chickpeas or the pumpkin seeds, the sweet potato, you could keep in a separate bowl and sprinkle on. So that's what I would do if you're going to eat it over maybe 2-3 days and beyond.
Okay, good. Well, this was very informative, Katie. So thank you so much for
You're welcome.
your presentation today. And we're just so excited to learn all these great things about healthy aging.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
You're
And we are
welcome.
all looking forward to July 25th with the hydration.
Yes. Thank you, Carol.
Okay.
I hope everyone has a great rest of June, and I'll see you in July.
Okay. Thank
All
you.
right. Bye.